Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about the Rocborne Magic Ranger from Griffon Saddlebag Book 2, which of course they sponsored an entire series going over all 12 subclasses from their second book. So if you want to get access to all of those and way more stuff, go ahead and check out their Patreon. Or if you just want the subclasses, go ahead and pre-order the book now. You'll get access to all the stuff from Book 2 right away. Definitely worth a look on that part. If you're new to the channel, what we're going to do is look over all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate it based on its roleplay, combat, and synergy, based on how the abilities gained improve on the base class abilities. Right. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Players Bundle giveaway.
Free stuff is wonderful.
That being said, let's just jump straight into it. Alex.
Okay. So we're getting some Rocborne magic, and we're getting some extra spells for your Ranger class. These extra spells are Featherfall, Gust of Wind, Lightning Bolt, Ice Storm, and Legend Lore on the back end. So a lot of environmental, weathery, elemental based spell list. Also at level 3 we have Guiding Wind. When you make an attack, you can whisper to the wind to have it aid your strikes. Once on each of your turns, you can choose to gain one of the following benefits. When you hit with a weapon attack, the target takes an extra 1d4 of the weapon's type. When you reach level 11 in this class, this extra damage increases to 1d8, which is kind of scaling and like a built-in hunter's mark, essentially. When you miss with a weapon attack, you can change its trajectory to attack a different target, up to 5 feet away from the original one, so within melee range of the other. And when you do, your attack roll against the new target is equal to the original attack roll, plus your wisdom modifier. So you get a little bit of an extra bump if you do miss on that redirect to try to hit it over there. And then, when you reach level 11 in this class, that new target can be up to 15 feet away, as long as it's still within range of your weapon. So
it becomes usable at level 11.
Yeah, it becomes much more reliable there at level 15.
Yes, I do like the scaling on that. I like a lot of the unique scaling options that they give in this book. Yep. So, very glad that we're seeing more of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Then at level 3, also, we have Whisper of Knowledge. You can spend 10 minutes communing with spirits to gain proficiency in one skill or tool of your choice that you don't already have proficiency in, as Traveling Spirit shares its knowledge with you. You lose this proficiency the next time you use the feature or finish a short or long rest. You can use the feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. Regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So some nice utility there.
Yes. Level 7, we get Windswept. Your walking speed increases by 5 feet. You ignore any movement penalty caused by strong wind, and you can't be pushed because of strong wind against your will. In addition, you have resistance to cold damage and are acclimated to high altitudes, including elevations above 20,000 feet. So any negative effects from being in high altitudes, shortness of breath and things like that. Not used to that. You're acclimated to that just fine. Level 11, we get Soar. You can use a bonus action immediately after you make a running jump to grow a pair of spectral rock-like wings that last until the end of your next turn or until you touch the ground again. While the wings are present, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed.
All right.
So you just basically got to get a little running start to take off like a little plane, essentially, and then it lasts until the end of your next turn. So the turn you've got them in another turn, you won't fall at the end of the current turn.
Yeah, just make sure by the end of the next turn that you're getting ready to land, or otherwise you don't want to just keep going up, because what goes up must come down. Before we get on to the last ability here, give a quick shout out to our second sponsor, Humblewood Tales from Hit Point Press.
Great.
Their newest Kickstarter on here, an expansion to the Humblewood campaign setting. We got 5 new adventures from characters level 3 to 8, tons of magic items, pre-made characters, all kinds of awesome lore to expand the world. So definitely worth checking out, especially if you're interested in something that goes against the typical fantasy tropes.
That it does very well, actually.
So, that being said, check out the link down below. You will not want to miss out on this one, guys. Then we have our last ability on here, Hurricane. At 15th level, when you take damage, you can use your reaction to give yourself resistance to that damage, or take no damage instead if it was falling damage. When you do, each creature of your choice within 15 feet of you must make a strength saving throw against your ranger spell save DC. On a failed save, a creature takes bludgeoning damage equal to your ranger level and is knocked prone. On a successful save, creature takes half as much damage and isn't knocked prone. When you use this feature, you can choose to allow the wind spirits to immediately fly you to an unoccupied space that you can see within 30 feet of you without provoking opportunity attacks. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, that being said, those are all the abilities gained in the subclass, so we'll just move on into the rating portion. First up is the roleplay value, asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order.
Yes.
Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background. That's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in subclass and how they might improve your potential in those role play scenarios.
That's right.
So, all that being said on here, we have some solid spells on here. I mean, Featherfall, Gust of Wind could be used, Legend Lore, sure. But you are a ranger, so you're a half-caster, and you're only getting access to 5 spells added on there. So, some decent options for sure. The Whispers is a great utility to be able to just pull out some proficiencies that you don't have. Though it does take 10 minutes.
It does.
And it goes away when you take a short or long rest. So you're going to have to be using it regularly if you want to be switching stuff, or not taking short rests if you want to maintain stuff.
Yep.
So that's something you have to think about if you're, in a rushed circumstance. You may not be able to take that 10 minutes to get what you need. So it is really nice to have when you have access and time to do so, but it does have a little bit of a cost to it, and a little bit of pre-preparation planning that may come into play as well. And then there's some situational RP with the high elevation and strong wind benefits. And, I mean, the tiny little bit of movement on there never hurts, but, 5 feet.
Yeah.
It's something. So there is some use for sure on there. But, of course, the terrain kind of stuff, as with base ranger, can be very situational on there.
Yes.
And then, of course, temporary fly speed definitely can help, though it is for quite a short period of time. You're talking 10, 12 seconds or so. And you have to land, or you're going to have some issues.
Right.
So
as long as you've got, some running room, you can, run and make these basically ridiculously long leaps, or high leaps, kind of what it means.
It's more like what it is. It's just a giant leap,
Or glide, if you had to glide down to a lower surface, so at least cut out most of the falling damage if it was super high, kind of thing.
And, of course, you can, just cut the damage with your capstone as well if you really need to. But it is once per short rest, so you might want to hesitate a little bit when you want to use that for roleplay, which you can do. So all that being said, some interesting options, maybe a little bit more on the niche side of things on here. So we went with a 3.5 for the roleplay. So is what it is.
Right. On the combat side of things, the spell list obviously getting Lightning Bolt and Ice Storm, giving you a couple of offensive AoE spells. That Rangers don't really have a lot of access to that kind of stuff. There's like Hail of Thorns, things like that, to where they can get some AoE but not elemental type stuff like that. So that's never a bad thing to have. Again, the drawback being they're half-casters, so you can't just fire these all willy-nilly all the time. But the big easy things up front are like your Guiding Wind, being able to just choose to take extra damage when you hit something at least once a turn. That scales up to eventually 1d8, so it feels almost like you're getting an extra arrow into something with that first hit. So it kind of helps you bring up your damage floor, which is kind of what Rangers are already good at anyway, with their combat side of things. Because you've got the +2, archery fighting styles, you're more likely to hit. And you've got a couple of attacks. This one basically is going to give you a third attack as far as damage goes, not the chance to hit. And then, if you have the option, if you do miss, you can try to redirect that tactic to somebody else. Now, before level 11, there's got to be something standing right next to him to redirect that attack to him. It does give you the bump of using your Wisdom modifier to buff that chance to hit a little bit. So if you roll a 13 and you miss, you add your Wisdom modifier, it becomes a 16, then it hits. It's like, okay, cool. It was worth it. So once that 15-foot range extend happens at level 11, it does help that be a whole lot more reliable.
Definitely.
Because you're much more likely to have 2 targets within 15 feet of each other instead of 2 within 5 feet of each other. But still, it's fine. The Whispers of Knowledge is strictly an RP-based thing with a skill or a tool, unless, maybe you could argue for like a healer's kit.
Super.
But you're really fighting for things there. Windswept, giving you extra 5-bit of movement speed. It's not much, but it still helps technically. Resistance to cold damage is much more helpful there for sure. And I haven't really incurred a lot of strong winds unless somebody has cast a spell itself that does that. But if there were to happen, you'd have it. The soar bonus action flying is not a bad thing because it does give you at least an option for your bonus action, so you could cover gap to either get to somebody to help them. Because you are ranger to have access to some healing spells. If you need to get into range of somebody, you could bonus action to run and do that, and get across a gap or whatever, or get to somebody, get yourself out of trouble quickly. Sure, because you can fly it maybe out over somebody's range instead of having to run a long way around them or whatever. So
I think the only thing with that is it does use your bonus action, and you have to have a running start. It's going to like cut down some, and it has a cost to it for sure.
Yeah. But the good thing is there's no limitations as far as number of uses to it, so it does help it a little bit. And finally, on the capstone, you have a chance to just use your reaction to give yourself to resistance to a damage of a certain type, so kind of almost like an absorb elements kind of thing for a spell, but
uncanny dodge,
or uncanny dodge, and then you got the chance to throw some damage back the other way or knocks people prone. So there's some other things that you get to do with that. I like what it's trying to do, but for a capstone and a once per short rest ability, I kind of wish it did a little bit more. Yeah. Just honest answer. But it does give you a lot of interesting combinations of stuff for a very cool effect that makes it very unique to this subclass. And with all that being brought on there, we went with a 3 out of a 5 on a possible thing. And I think a lot of this comes from base Ranger is still...
Yeah, it definitely gets part of it.
She still needs help, in our opinion. But... and this definitely has some interesting things around it, and the theme behind it definitely stands out as unique.
Yeah, I think part of the thing, the best ability by far in my book is the first ability, just to get a little bit of damage bonus. Mm-hmm. But even with that, it's not a lot.
No.
I mean, at level 11, an extra 4 damage a turn is almost negligible at that point. Like, at level 11, stuff like that, pretty decent amount of health.
Yeah, like that D4 at level 3 feels like more than that D8 at 11 will. Just because the health of stuff you're fighting at level 3 is going to be outscaling that damage.
Yeah, so it is interesting on there. It does scale, which is nice, but it's going to, like I said, for extra 4 damage on average per turn it's nothing crazy, really.
Right.
It's not. Now, to be able to get the trajectory at 11, I think it's going to be more often the go-to thing, but you have to be fighting multiple stuff, and it's very situational. And the flying speed, again, it has a cost to it, so it is what it is. The Hurricane, I do like the concept of it. I feel like it's just not going to be super useful a lot of times. And it is your spell save, which you're a ranger. Your wisdom's not going to be your best stat most likely.
Of the time, yeah.
It's usually you go at full dex. I know people don't always play ranged rangers. I know it's a thing. People go strength based, but you get the most efficiency when you go dex, because then you have armor, like light armor bonuses, and you have ranged weapons or light weapons. So.
Yeah, because even if you're playing melee dex, if you have a finesse weapon, it's going to be a dex-based weapon.
It's more efficient to go like dex con with wisdom. So if you do want to have that, I mean, not only for the capstone does stuff have to be relatively close to you. Yep. If you're playing a ranger, more often than not, you're probably going to be playing a ranged ranger. Mm-hmm. So
it's in the name. It's not closer.
So it's close range, and it's a strength save against your spell save, which is probably not going to be the highest.
And it's not a very big range either. It's 15 feet of you, so you're talking about a very small space.
And it's once a short rest.
Yes.
So I think the biggest thing this, in our opinion, that kind of struggles with it is the limitedness of a lot of the stuff.
Yes.
Outside of the initial ability that you get, which is fantastic.
And I really do love the Whispers of Knowledge thing. Even if there is a 10-minute restriction as far as how long it takes you to change it, you can just change it several times a day. To get a new skill set that you wouldn't normally have otherwise.
And all of this, of course, going into the synergy side of things, which you do have some good spell options again on here, but you are a ranger, so depending on your build, you're probably not going to have the best saves for some of these things. So they're not going to be super effective, like Ice Storm, Lightning Bolt, great spells, but you're not a primary caster, so the saves for them are going to be pretty lacking, which means they're probably only going to be doing half damage or whatever most of the time. Which, sure, it's nice to have those options, of course. And then on here, you do get some good utility with those as well, though, with some of the other spells.
Yep.
Extra mobility, sure. Extra resistances, gives more to survivability. You have some flying, which can help you get into or out of situations a little bit better, which is nice. All that being said, we just went with a 3.5 for the synergy. Some nice options, but I think the biggest thing that we struggle with on here is just Ranger. I mean, I know we're basing it on the base class improvements, but it's just sometimes it can be really hard to make really strong subclasses for a class that is just lacking in general.
Yeah.
Without just completely walking over the entire class altogether, which we see with some of the better Ranger subclasses. They're like, ignore all of your base class stuff. This is your class now, is your subclass. Which it is interesting out there. But it is what it is. It's still a solid subclass for sure. Love the theme and flavor of it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting, if anything, which, I mean, it can be said about all the subclasses in this book, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one subclass I'm upset with.
Right.
These are all great subclasses.
Yes.
Big fans of all the stuff.
Especially when it comes to their flavor. They all stand out as
definitely.
unique for sure.
So I do love what's going on here. And, of course, thank you again to our sponsors, Griffon Saddlebag. Awesome stuff, as we are talking about on here. There's some very cool ones coming up soon, so don't miss out on those guys. If you want to get access to all of these, help support them, help support us, check out that link down below. It's going to help. And, of course, Humblewood Tales. Great setting. Great way to dip your toes in, as Alex has said, for new DMs, to have a pre-made campaign or setting. That's outside of traditional things as well, if you want to, freshen up or revivify some of your
goodness.
campaigns, put some more life into
there.
the party. So check those out, guys. Helps us out. Greatly appreciated. And as always,